Hi and welcome to this video about how to be punctual if you're always running late. And some people are never on time and have just never figured out how to be punctual. And if you're someone who finds it next to impossible to be on time, punctual, even if you hate other people being late by even a millisecond, is there hope for you? In fact, how can you be punctual? More and more things in our society require us to be on time. And okay, there are times when it's fine to be fashionably late, but those are usually reserved for social occasions. If you're late for a business meeting, you could lose a deal or not make an important sale, which could make the difference between keeping your job or not. And if you miss your flight because of bad timekeeping, that has all sorts of knock-on implications. So what can you do to be more punctual in the future? Short term, you could set your watch fast, but your mind will soon start to allow for that, and you may even find yourself being later than ever. And unless you live somewhere like Los Angeles, where being on time seems to be almost unheard of, you need to take steps to become more timely. Do your time calculations. Unless it's the first time you've gone from A to B, wherever those 2 points are, you'll know approximately how long it takes to get from A to B. That could be a minute or two if it's from one room in your company offices to another, or a 5-minute walk, or a 10-minute commute, or several hours if it's a train ride or a plane flight away. If it's the first time, Google's got a directions option and it even allows for traffic at different times of the day. That means there's really no excuse for being late. Certainly not most of the time, because you know or you can find out how long it takes you to get to your meeting, you know how long it takes you to get ready for the event, and your phone has a reminder option that you can set ahead of time. So short of unforeseen circumstances, and you can't use that excuse every time, sorry, you have a precision schedule that you can check. Now, one thing, don't underestimate your timings, because it's really easy to underestimate how long things are likely to take. We all do it, but you'll probably instinctively know by roughly how much you underestimate your timings by. And if you don't know, ask an honest friend or a colleague to gently tell you the figure. They're the ones who've been hanging around, twiddling their thumbs, on more occasions than either of you would care to admit, and they'll probably be glad to tell you. They might even gloat, but don't worry about that. If you're going to go to something together, it may even get to the stage where you remind them that there's an extra 10 minutes or whatever buffer built into the timings to allow them to faff around before setting off. You can do that with someone, and that can work as long as you've known the other person long enough for it not to appear rude. Next off, double check your directions. Sat-navs definitely aren't infallible. Us, the people who've used them and ended up on the blue road that turns out to be a river, or the lorry drivers who've had special signs erected on their behalf because the sat-nav doesn't know the height of all the bridges on the route it's suggesting, and lorries and low bridges don't really mix. Most sat-navs also don't allow for time of day, although with route planners on your phone it's getting more common for expected or actual traffic to be allowed for. Even then, it's worth bringing up the overview map on a desktop computer so you can get a better idea of your route, especially if it's unfamiliar. And be prepared ahead of time. For instance, 5 minutes before a meeting isn't the best time to print off that 20-page presentation or pick a shirt and iron it. Apart from anything else, leaving things to the last minute will stress you out more than is good for you, whether or not you acknowledge the stress or show any outward signs of it. And it's easy to procrastinate and think you've got enough time. Then something unexpected happens because it seems to know you've got lots of other things to do, and your schedule's put back further and further. That could result in something trivial like your hair not being perfectly brushed, or it could result in something much more serious such as not winning a bid or your date going badly. So being prepared does take some effort. You might need a checklist, you might need to organise things more than you usually do, that kind of thing. But it does mean that you're not scrambling around doing an impression of a blue-ass fly or a busy fool. Try it next time you have an important meeting that you need to be punctual for. Pretend that the meeting won't wait for you. And unless you're on Air Force One, there's a very good chance that a flight won't wait for you. If it would take off at the allotted time, whether or not you reach the departure desk by the stated time. Okay, airlines allow roughly an extra hour in their arrive at the airport schedule to allow for people to be late or delayed, but there's still a cut-off time after which there's no amount of pleading will get you on board. So treat your next meeting like a flight, with the start time set the same as the absolute latest you could get on board a plane without being clipped on the heels as the door closes. Chances are you turn up on time for that, so do the same for the other things you need to be punctual for. Make a resolution to be early for everything. If you know you're traditionally 15 minutes late and everyone sighs when you arrive, you're flustered, then make a resolution to be that amount of time early, plus maybe an extra few minutes. You'll know whether the extra added time makes sense for you. You know yourself much better than anyone else. You don't have to wait until the new year to make resolutions. You can make them at any time of the year, and they're probably a lot better done individually than as a bucket list anyway. Of course, there's no point in making a resolution to be early unless you stick to it. Otherwise, you'll have your usual lateness, but probably more flustered because you've effectively missed 2 deadlines. This option can work well alongside going public with your intention. Announce to anyone who'll listen that you've given up your tardiness and you'll be early in future. Then challenge yourself to prove almost everyone wrong who's listened to you and silently said, yeah, right. Because if your punctuality has historically been poor, that's what they'll be thinking. So challenge yourself to be early just to see the look on the faces of the people who thought hell would freeze over before you arrive for anything. Stop hitting snooze on your alarm. And yeah, I know you need your BT sleep, but that doesn't mean you couldn't go to bed slightly earlier instead of getting up on the umpteenth press of the snooze button. And commit to getting out of bed just before the alarm first goes off. That's actually quite doable. Personally, my alarm is there as a backstop that I almost never use. And doing that will give you a sense of achievement. Set yourself an initial target to beat your alarm clock once a week, then raise that challenge to twice, 3 times and so on. Or if that's completely impossible for you, work out how you can rearrange your day so you can have that extra time in bed. And of course, you may not have that luxury, in which case you'll need to look at the timings involved and work out whether there's anything you can do to more efficiently or move so it's not in your own personal morning rush hour. Do a time and motion study on yourself. And okay, you're probably not going to follow yourself around with a clipboard and a pen and a stopwatch, but get as close to that outsider view as you possibly can. Yeah, it'll take a little bit of extra time to jot down each task and the time taken, but you probably know your own routine well enough to be able to put the task down in some semblance of order before you begin, and then just note the times each one starts and ends. And this works well for anything you do on a regular basis, whether that's getting to work on time, getting to meetings on time, or anything else. Chances are the areas where you waste time will leap out at you and from the sheet almost as soon as you write them. And if they don't, go back over the sheet a day later, and if they still don't, ask a friend to help you figure out where time could be saved to change you from being permanently late to being punctual. Don't put too much on your schedule either. That can be really difficult to do. Your schedule may be partially or totally dictated by other people, and if that's the case, let them know they're trying to schedule you 28 hours a day and you've got no chance of those happening because your name isn't Jack Bauer, and that's even forgetting about the fact that the TV show's fiction and that each 40-ish minute episode that claims to cover an hour takes a lot longer to write and film. And this can mean working out what is and isn't important on the schedule, because it could mean that something has to get dropped. If that happens, explain to the people concerned that you can't fit everything into your diary. That's the main reason you've been historically not been punctual. And that you're going to do whatever it was less often, but for the actual amount of time you booked for. And if they don't understand, maybe you need to rethink your relationship with them. If it's a work issue, then a quiet word with HR once you've calmed down might be the thing to help out the problems. If not, decide whether it's time to freshen up your CV and work somewhere that doesn't expect you to be superhuman. Use a clock as a screensaver. That's actually quite easy, because wearing a watch is almost a lost art, but almost every phone and computer has the ability to have a clock as a screensaver. So if you're constantly forgetting the time and in turn that's affecting your punctuality, change your settings so you've got a clock every time you look at your phone or leave your computer unattended for more than a few minutes. Then add in buffer time to your day. Diarise blank periods in your day. The amount of time and the amount of blocks is up to you, and you can always change the settings as the day goes by. It's your diary. And those blocks can be used as and when meetings overrun and you can't get away from them, or they can simply be used to catch up on all the small day-to-day tasks that can get neglected and can mount up to devour more time than you ever imagined once you finally get to them. A bit like trying to keep a teenager's bedroom tidy, but you wouldn't admit that. Buffer time is it's the time that only you will know about. To everyone else, a meeting or other time slot will be that number of minutes longer, and if someone else's meetings always seem to overrun time, build that into your schedules as well, so that you're not playing catch-up just because someone outside your control forced you to be late and that had a knock-on effect during the rest of your day. And keep a note of how this works for you and adjust it as the days and weeks go by and you gradually become more punctual. even when other people seem to conspire to prevent you from managing that. And have something to do in the extra waiting time, and this may turn out to be your most productive time ever. There are always things to do, and then there always seem to be less hours available than they need. Keep a brief list of things you can do in the time you've shifted by being early for things. Could be thinking time, something a lot of us just don't do enough about. Could be a simple relaxation technique so you're refreshed when the meeting starts. And it could actually be interacting with other people who are early, taking a bit of time to get to know them outside the environment of the meeting that's about to take place. Or it could be a folder with a bunch of things that you really like to get completed and that will survive being finished in fits and starts. And in conclusion, there's a good chance you need to work on your mind, otherwise you'll get more and more stressed as you miss more and more meetings and deadlines. Plus, if you make it too much of a habit out of being permanently late, you'll begin to find people either cancelling meetings with you or just not setting them up in the first place. Or the meeting you've called will be cut short because it still needs to end on time even if you started it late, and that happens quite a lot. One way around all this is to download a hypnosis track that will help you to become a more punctual person. Just listen to the track. It's okay to be late for the listening session, just so long as you start at the beginning and listen to it right through, and it'll work with you to help you to improve your punctuality. Click the link below this video to instantly download a hypnosis track to help you to be punctual. Then set aside the time to listen to it all the way through at least once. So click the download link now. You'll be happy that you did. Thanks for listening.